When the Harappan civilization collapsed, city life in the Indian subcontinent almost entirely vanished. For nearly 1,000 years, there were no sprawling urban centers, no massive brick fortresses, just silence across the landscape. But as we enter the first millennium BCE, the map starts to light up again. People began moving eastward, settling heavily along the massive network of the Ganga Plains. The appeal here is straightforward. The Ganga Plains offer deep, incredibly fertile soil and a steady supply of water, making it a perfect environment to sustain large farming communities. Agricultural fertility provided the base for survival, but the Ganga Plains offered a second, harder advantage: immediate proximity to massive deposits of iron ore. Take a close look at these tools. With these thick iron heads, laborers could chop through the dense ancient forests of the north and plow deep into the hard, sun-baked earth, tasks that copper and stone simply couldn't handle. The mathematics of this are simple but powerful. A deeper plow means better seed germination. Better germination yields a massive surge in food production. Because a single farmer could now produce far more food than their own family needed, an entire population was freed from daily survival labor. Those citizens turned their hands to trade, crafts, and architecture, laying the literal foundations for new cities. As these populations settled, they formed territories known as Janapadas. The word itself is a literal description. Jana means people, and pada means foot, or the place where they settled. By the 8th and 7th centuries BCE, these common language settlements began to outgrow their borders. The strongest local leaders aggressively absorbed neighboring territories, rapidly expanding their domains. The result is a map divided into 16 massive superstates, the Mahajanapadas. This chain of empires stretched horizontally all the way from Gandhara in the northwest to Anga in the eastern plains. You can see the scale of the ruins they left behind. These states required impenetrable capitals, heavily fortified with massive brick walls, elaborate gatehouses, and deep protective moats. Moving tens of thousands of people behind high walls creates a logistical puzzle. Managing these sprawling, heavily populated fortresses required an entirely new approach to human governance. Curious, how exactly do you control the massive wealth and thousands of citizens within a Mahajanapada? The most common solution was monarchy. In large states like Magadha and Kosala, absolute power rested with a king, who passed control directly to his son, aided by a small circle of ministers. But not every state followed that model. Territories like Vaji and Mala pioneered a radical alternative, the Gana, or Sangha, early forms of republics. Instead of a hereditary king, these republics utilized assemblies known as the Sabha and Samiti. Here, major decisions were argued out, voted upon, and councils even held the power to remove a weak ruler from office. While autocratic empires were rising across the rest of the ancient world, citizens in these specific Indian republics were actively participating in some of the earliest documented democratic traditions on the planet. Managing an economy across 16 rival states quickly outgrew the old barter system. Traders needed an efficient, universally recognized standard of value. They solved this by inventing India's first currency, punch-marked silver coins. You can see the distinctly stamped symbols driven straight into the jagged metal, verifying its weight and origin. This new currency flowed along two major highway systems. The Uttara Patha connected the northern plains, while the Dakshina Patha cut southward down into the peninsula. As northern trade money poured south to exchange for spices and gemstones, it funded the rise of the wealthy Chola, Chera, and Pandya kingdoms, evident today in their highly intricate stonework. Roads and silver achieved what weapons couldn't. They erased the geographic isolation between the north and south, finding the subcontinent's economy into a single interlocking network. But this massive economic machine carried a severe human cost. As cities grew, keeping them running required highly specialized, permanently divided labor forces. This started as a practical occupational grouping called Jati. Farmers lived and worked with farmers, metalworkers with metalworkers, passing their specific trade skills down to their children. This chart shows how local, skill-based communities were sorted into a macro-level structure called Varna, 4 strict tiers. Brahmins handled knowledge and education, Kshatriyas managed rule and protection, Vaishyas oversaw farming and business. Shudras were tasked with manual labor. What began as a flexible way to organize a booming population hardened. The borders between these tiers closed, embedding deep social inequality into the culture. By around 300 BCE, the fierce, independent dominance of the 16 Mahajanapadas began to fade, but the physical systems they built remained. The deep plowing enabled by iron, the standardization of silver currency, and the creation of subcontinent-spanning roads outlasted the states that commissioned them. Culturally, they left behind a complex dual legacy, the intellectual triumph of early democratic voting councils, sitting directly alongside the harsh constraints of a rigid social hierarchy. The second urbanization ended a millennium of isolation and established the structural foundations of the modern Indian state.